We're still ahead on LTV International, and it's a new edition of Africa Today. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today. Egypt is in the heart of Africa, and always we are praising the cooperation between Egypt and all the countries across the continent. First of all, we're going to discuss today how Egypt welcomes the coordination between the Cairo and the South Africa, special in its presidency of the G20. Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania Al-Mashat, said that Egypt welcomes cooperation and collaboration with the ministry or with the government of South Africa within the framework of its presidency of the G20. Let's watch this report.
Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania Al-Mashat, said Egypt welcomes coordination with South Africa within the framework of its presidency of the G20 to push forward restructuring the global financial system and achieve tangible progress in development financing, highlighting the joint role that Egypt and South Africa play as a consensus of the African continent in shaping and guiding the sustainable development agenda both regionally and internationally. During a bilateral meeting held between the Minister of Planning and South Africa's Minister in Presidency responsible for planning, monitoring and evaluation, Lydia Remakosa, to enhance bilateral cooperation and align visions on regional and international issues, held on the sidelines of Egypt's participation in the G20 Development Ministers meeting, hosted and chaired by South Africa in July. Mashat voiced sincere appreciation to the government and people of South Africa for inviting Egypt to participate in the G20 meetings, noting that Egypt has actively participated in G20 discussions over the past 5 years, reflecting its influential role in global development efforts.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and to shed more light on this, we are most delighted to be joined over the phone by Your Excellency Ambassadress Souad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Your Excellency, very great pleasure to have you with us. Hello? Hello? Your Excellency? Yes? I believe there is something wrong. Yes, Ambassadress Souad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister. It's a great pleasure having you with us on LTV International. I believe there's something wrong. Anyway, talking about our topic, Egypt is really praising the cooperation. Yeah, you hear me, Your Excellency. Yes, it's a great pleasure having you with us. Yes, and the topic that we are discussing now, it's the collaboration between and coordination between Egypt and South Africa within the framework of its presidency of the G20. Also in the framework of reconstruction of the world financial system. How you find this collaboration? I will call you back, Your Excellency. Okay. Yes. All right, we'll call you back. So this cooperation between Egypt and the South Africa within the framework of its presidency of the G20 is supposed to promote the collaboration and to push forward actually restructuring the global financial system, the GFS. Also to achieve tangible progress in development financing. Also the Minister of Planning and International Cooperation, Rania Al-Mashat, highlighted that the joint role that Egypt and South Africa are playing now, the coordination also of the African continent is shaping and guiding the sustainable development between the two countries and also the other countries across the continent. I believe we got called back the ambassadress Souad Shalaby. Yes, Your Excellency, you hear me?
لا في مشكلة في الصوت أنا مش
There is
سامعاك.
something wrong. You cannot hear me. Well, all right. We'll call you back later on.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll move on to another topic till we call the ambassadress Souad Shalaby once again. So with smiling and optimistic faces, 900 Sudanese left the Egyptian capital Cairo on Monday on a free train journey back to war-torn Sudan. Of course, they miss their country, even if it's still suffering from the war and suffering from famine and suffering from a terrible humanitarian crisis nowadays after long time suffering after the war. The departing Egypt Sudanese were lining up outside Ramses railway station and the central train station in Cairo to begin a journey back home by or in train that takes them back home to Sudan.
With smiling and optimistic faces, 900 Sudanese left the Egyptian capital Cairo on a free train journey back to war-torn Sudan. Departing Egypt, Sudanese were lining up outside Ramses railway station, the central train station in Cairo, to begin a journey home in a train that takes them to the southern Egyptian city of Aswan, where they will take ferries and buses to enter Sudan. Sarah Muhammad, a 33-year-old mother of 2 kids, said that she's happy because she's finally going back to her house to see her parents. Muhammad, originally from Sudan's capital city of Khartoum, fled to Egypt a year ago due to the fighting between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces. Muhammad was living in Faisal, a vibrant and bustling district in Egypt's Giza Governorate, which hosts thousands of Sudanese refugees. Last week, Egypt's National Railway Authority launched a special train to facilitate the voluntary return of Sudanese in Egypt. According to the authority statement released on Monday, train number 1940, an air-conditioned third-class service, departed from Cairo station at 11 a.m. local time and will arrive at the High Dam station in Aswan at 11:40 p.m. All Sudanese nationals wishing to return can register via WhatsApp. A confirmation message takes 5 days. Applicants need to submit their details to prove their nationality, and the committee will contact them with travel dates and ticket numbers. Sudanese ambassador in Cairo, Ahmeduddin Adawi, accompanying the returnees, said that after the Sudanese army restored control of Khartoum, it is the moment for stability, adding that the first step for stability is to help the Sudanese people to return home to take part in the reconstruction of their country.
Your voice matters. Your ballot makes a difference.
Well, we still had an LTV International on our today's edition of Africa Today, and we got called Her Excellency Ambassadress Souad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Hello, Your Excellency. Do you hear me now?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, we've been talking about the cooperation between Egypt and the country of South Africa within the framework of its presidency of the G20, and concerning also the reconstruction of the global financial system, of course, special for the developing countries. How you find how you weigh such cooperation from the very beginning?
Egypt is always very active in representing Africa in world conferences, and especially when it comes to the G20. Of course, Egypt has its agenda, and it always represents the African agenda. So it is important that Egypt highlights the challenges that are facing Africa economically, and of course the climate change and the peace and security. These are the three challenges that face Africa, and Egypt has always put on the strategy, on the strategic agenda, especially when the motto of G20 was building a just world in a sustainable planet and a sustainable planet. So the topics that Egypt discussed was the social inclusion, the combating of poverty, and combating hunger. Of course, the global governance was on the agenda also, and the energy transition with sustainable development. So the regional crises that are facing Africa, whether it is the ongoing wars, the ongoing conflicts, and also the violence, the terrorism in West Africa, and also the hunger crisis that is facing Sudan and South Sudan and Democratic Republic of Congo. Because of the continuous violence and the continuous conflicts that are facing, and
as you mentioned, Your Excellency, of course, the food insufficiency in Africa, and of course, as you mentioned, because of the outbreak of violence and tensions throughout the continent. Also, there is a UN report reveals alarming rise in Africa's food insecurity despite global improvements also. And how you find this insufficient food problem in Africa, also because of the problems that you've mentioned and the conflicts that you've mentioned, plus the problems and crises out of the climate change.
Yes, of course, there was recently a UN report that has been submitted by 5 agencies, WHO and FAO are 2 agencies from, and IFAD, of course. They published recently a very important UN report that mentioned that the goal was to reach zero hunger by 2030. But due to severe food insecurity in Africa, as you said, due to climate change, during the conflict displacement, not only that, but also to economic instability, to failure of agricultural production, to the fragile agri-food systems, to the high population growth. As you know, the population is growing in Africa, and there are no food production to match that growth. That is why 82% of the global population face hunger, and most of them are in Africa. Like 60% of world hungry people are in Africa. And the climate food insecurity is a serious challenge that has to be addressed by the government. As you know, that there has been instability in Sudan, South Sudan, Mali, and Chad, Mozambique, Nigeria. So these are the hotspots of major concern. And due to lack of agricultural production, the African people, 1 in every 5 people in the continent is facing chronically malnutrition. So they are undernutrition because they are not getting enough food, they are not getting diet, they are not getting nutritious diet. So there has to be steps by the government to, of course, address these problems of malnutrition and of undernutrition. And there is also micronutrition deficiency in many Africans, and this has been highlighted in this report.
Your Excellency, how you believe that, how might economic other problems like inflation, debts are also influencing the continent's ability to manage such food insufficiency program or problem, also with the, and how this are in the potential long-term impacts of such a growing food insufficiency or insecurity on African development.
Yes, of course, the debts are causing a lot of economic instability because governments are focusing their finance on paying the debts, not on agricultural production and food supply chain. That is why there has to be focus on the solutions, which is giving the small-scale farmers possibility of production in order to face poverty and also to face hunger in rural areas. If the government is in debt and if there is inflation and if there are problems in the economy, then the farming and also if there are conflicts and wars that are taking away the farming land and the agricultural production, this will also affect the government from financing the agro-industrial sector. So there should be an increase in the public financing for food self-sufficiency and for agricultural food supply chain. And this is something that all the countries in Africa, all the governments should focus on to become self-sufficient and to face the food insecurity.
Yeah,
also the role of women, because the women are the ones who do the small businesses in agriculture. There should be also focus on the role of women in agriculture.
This came in the suggestions of the report, yeah? That's what you are suggesting, suggesting right away, yes? The recommendation and suggestions of the report of the UN, yes?
In the UN report, exactly.
Yep, yes. The role of the women in Africa, yes?
Exactly.
Well, it's really depressive and astonishing that a continent like the African continent is supposed to be the continent of opportunities, a continent of the source of food for the whole world, to suffer really from food insecurity because of political tensions and other economical problems and tensions. So we just wish to for all the situations and all the conflicts in the African continent to get better and to really talk about Africa again as a continent of resources and opportunities. Your Excellency, Ambassador Souad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister, many thanks for being with us. And well, now we are moving to the Ivory Coast at 3 months before Ivory Coast presidential elections. Long-standing leader Alassane Ouattara has announced that he will be standing again for a 4th term in office, ending month of speculations. Let's watch.
3 months before Ivory Coast presidential election, long-standing leader Ouattara has announced he will be standing for a 4th term in office, ending months of speculation. The 83-year-old president said both his health and the country's constitution allows him to serve another term. Ouattara, who has been president since 2011, said the country was facing unprecedented security, economic and monetary challenges. He added that he believed the management of the situation required someone with experience. For months, Ouattara's presidential majority has been calling for his candidacy at large demonstrations across the country. Both Democratic Party of Ivory Coast leader and former president, who leads the African People's Party of Ivory Coast, are currently contesting their expulsion from the electoral list. The two main opposition parties have launched a joint campaign to demand the restatement of their board leaders ahead of the presidential election. The submission of candidates closes at the end of August, ahead of the first round of presidential elections on 25th of October.
Well, the President of Ivory Coast, Alassane Ouattara, for the fourth term in the presidency of Ivory Coast. We wish him all the luck and, of course, all the best for the Ivory Coast country. Well, by this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of our today's edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching, and from myself, Hanan El Khoury.